On that note, I'll humbly hand over to George and Jane. Thank you.
Leonard, thank you, and welcome to our live audience here at St Vincent's, and welcome to our online audience. And I'd like to just ask, I wonder how many of you know someone who has had to battle with mental health? And then I wonder how many of you have had your own journey with mental health? I know for me the answer is yes, and I'm sure for most of you the answer is a yes at some level. And in my work as the Barefoot Mediator, I have two mantras. Whatever is unspoken is hardest to change, and that we speak least about the things that matter most. And so often when we have these challenges in our life, we don't find the words, we don't find the way to share that with someone else, we don't find the way to tell our story. So that's what today is about. It's the beginning of a series of events enabling people and encouraging you to be able to share your story and find your journey. And I'm going to start my interview with George Najeme. So George.
Hello, Jane.
Hi.
Hi.
So we've known each other for a couple of years, George, and I know a little bit about your story, but it starts back in Cameroon. Tell us about the beginning of this journey.
It does. I'm from Cameroon, West Africa. I was born in a town called Boya, and I grew up in a household of 6 sisters and 3 brothers. Earlier on in my life was quite stable. As you imagine, a household of many, so it was quite lively. I pretty much had everything I could ask for.
Mm-hmm.
My father was an NP, and for many years I was quite stable. Until an unfortunate, quite terrifying event happened just before. It's the event that determined my arrival to the UK, where we were held at gunpoint, and yes, it was a terrible event. We were held at gunpoint, and I remember feeling like we were all gonna be killed that night. It changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed everything, and it was after then that my father decided that he needed to disperse most of us abroad, and that's how I ended up here in the UK.
So wow, what a story! I mean, you start off with this wonderful, big, happy, sounds like boisterous family, but then this event happens, this traumatic event.
Yes.
Which completely upturns your life.
Absolutely, changed everything.
Changed everything, yeah. And you ended up coming to the UK. So tell us about this transition, about you coming here and how you had to restart your life, really.
So my arrival to the UK was quite exciting. I was excited about the opportunity to have just better prospects in life. When I arrived, I was focused, quite ambitious. I had dreams to be a professional basketball player. I also had a dream to be a recording artist, and as well as going to university and completing a business degree. So that kept me grounded,
mm-hmm.
and it was a lot of hardship that came with my arrival to the UK. Just fitting into a new school system, just the cultural differences, and just not having my family like I had in Cameroon. Everything had changed, but I didn't pick up on anything whilst I arrived here. I just thought I was a young man trying to find his way through life, and I was doing all that I could to succeed. Made it to university, and when I returned to my second year, this is when, it became clear that I was dealing with a lot more than I had even, could even perceive. And I ended up having a nervous breakdown. in the form of a manic episode with psychotic symptoms.
Wow.
I was sectioned and diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Gosh, George, I mean, what a story, what a transition. I mean, you're struggling to make your way in a new country, and you're in a different culture. You've described that. I think you told me before you were living with family members. Is that right?
I was indeed.
Yeah.
One of my aunts is here today. I'd like to acknowledge her, my aunt Ruth. She's been very supportive. I've lived a lot of the time whilst I've been here in the UK with her. I also have family members who were present at that awful event in Cameroon who are here in the audience. I'd just like to acknowledge them as well, Ruth and Hannah. Yes, so I lived with a few family members earlier on, and then I went to university before the unfortunate event where I was diagnosed with a mental health condition.
So really what your story is telling us is that trauma doesn't leave you. You're full of ambition and excitement, and yet there's something still inside you which is you've not been able to overcome at that stage.
Yes, even in your intro you mentioned that it's just like I know as well when I did your course, Jane, conflict resolution and just how if you mismanage conflicts, it can be quite devastating if you don't manage them properly. So it's the same thing with my traumas. So I'd come from Cameroon and just didn't even see how much I'd been affected by that awful event and was just getting on with life. And, yes, it just unresolved traumas. Yeah. It escalated eventually.
And it wasn't, George, just one incident, was it? So I know you've told me that this period of breakdown carried on for some time, didn't it?
It did indeed. The years that followed after my diagnosis, which was around 2008, the years that followed were quite unstable. I had about maybe 4 to 5 relapses that ended me in hospital. I was sectioned on all these occasions, and in total, I've spent about just over a year in mental health hospitals. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really awful. Each relapse, just the things ways that you would act whilst you're relapsing that a lot of people wouldn't understand.
Yes.
And the stigma attached to mental health is just like another, overbearing weight that you need to carry, as well as your condition and recovering from your relapses. And so throughout my relapses, there's several relationships that were severed. And so I just felt this is why it's important to keep creating. I wanted to create this awareness and create this space where everyone or anyone suffering from a mental health condition is viewed just the same as anyone else with any other illness. I think we need to be fairly treated and supported because we need it.
So George, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I'm sure many people who have got an experience with mental health may not appreciate what it feels like to be sectioned and in hospital for over a year, and that really is quite an admission. And I know the word stigma means a lot to you, that the stigma and the shame almost of having to deal with that and being able to speak about it has been something that's you've had to come to terms with.
Yeah.
In a minute, we're going to go on and talk about your recovery, because you have now gone through a period of recovery. But I think now we're just going to hear something about Mental Health Oxford.
Hello, I'm Barry.
Hello, I'm Wendy.
My name's Anne-Louise Cobb.
I'm Millie. I'm Gemma.
I met one of your workers, Ali. He was running a men's group in Carterton. And I went along to there because I had complex PTSD from Afghanistan. And what I did was sit there and just pull my heart out. This was before I received treatment. This was before I was diagnosed. So yeah, that's what brought me initially to mind. For me, it's a place of safety. For me, I needed that place to actually try and feel in a safe environment, and more importantly, not being judged. There's so many people out there who judge you, or turn around, or you feel that way inside your head. Everything doesn't make sense. Everything feels that the world is against you, or it did for me. And I felt I wanted to retire, hide away, escape from everything. And coming along here, I started doing a bit of artwork. I started sharing stories with people. Initially when I turned up, I had a hat on, head down, and all I was doing was like scribbles. And I couldn't understand it. What's the point in coming here? What's the point in sharing with other people and that? You know, what is the point? What's the point in being alive, to tell the truth? And it's really hard. You know, I have a guilt complex of being alive while others didn't make it. So I live with that every day. My family and friends have suffered because of that. But by coming to Mind, I've been able to release a lot of those emotions.
At Oxfordshire Mind, I run a reading group, a weekly reading group. I think the members of the reading group benefit in a number of ways, certainly socially. They come along, there's a group of us, they get to know each other well, and I think emotionally, psychologically they benefit. You're never on your own within this group because it's a shared reading group. You share the whole experience of whatever it is we're reading. They say things like, we always feel better when we go out from here, and that there is a sense of it is certainly improved well-being. People may be coming in not feeling so good, but going out feeling very different.
You can come here and feel understood. You don't have to tell people what problems you've got. You're accepted for who you are and however you're feeling. There are lots of different courses you can go on, and I found quite a few of them very helpful. But I think the biggest thing is that you don't have to pretend. You can be who you are and whatever place you're in.
We did an hour of well-being, and then we did an hour of box exercise. In well-being, we just learned about how to cope with anxiety and stress and things like that. And then in the box exercise, we just learned basic boxing techniques. Yeah, it just made me manage things better to do with school and life and things like that.
I live in a shared flat with another girl who is very nice. We each have a bedroom each, and we have a shared area that I like to decorate with gnomes and trees. About 2-3 years ago, I was working, and then I had a complete meltdown and couldn't cope with it anymore. I went through psychosis, spent a bit of time in hospital, and then for part of my recovery, I heard about Oxfordshire Mind and thought, well, you know, I feel like this is a good stage to move out. It's helped so much. I've made such amazing friends. Just that I'm feeling a lot better being here and feeling like I can have my independence and not have to rely on my family constantly for support.
So, George, I think your last relapse was in 2019, and that's when we met. And in fact, I remember speaking to you when you were actually in the mental health facility. We had a conversation. You called me,
Yes,
didn't you?
yes, that's so true. Yes, whilst it's quite interesting. I was having that relapse, and whilst in hospital, I was calling Jane. Jane, I need to tell my story. I need for people to have a better understanding about what people go through who suffer from mental health conditions. So, yeah.
And so George, you had that period, I suppose, about 10 years where you were relapsing and recovering and relapsing and recovering.
Yes.
And yet since then, you've gone through a complete transformation, I would say.
I have, yes.
What is it that's changed? What have you done that's enabled you to sort of get back on track?
So after about a stretch, let's say a 12-year stretch of just being unstable and relapsing over and over again, I came to a turning point. I just felt like I wanted different for myself. I wanted different for my life. I just wanted better. And so I felt like I needed to do more. Like, what am I missing? I've always had a very supportive family, friends, great support network, as well as medication and, the mental health team.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt like something was missing because I kept relapsing and ending up in hospital. But the last, I would say, 3 years have been so different. I just had to really dig deep and look at myself really close and make some drastic changes. And so I've been learning more about mindfulness, just working more on my well-being, just monitoring everything from my sleep, how I eat, those early warning signs before things escalate, and also I just feel like I have a testimony because I'm a Christian.
Yes.
And I've been actively practicing my faith for the last 3 years. And honestly, it's transformed. It's transforming my life in so many ways.
So that's really interesting, George, because you talked about you've got, and I know they're here today, a really supportive family. You've had support from the mental health facility and from the medics, but there was something missing, and the thing that was missing was you.
Yeah. True. My part.
You needed to help yourself, and you found that part.
Yes.
Your ability to be what I call actually self-determination. You're able to take part to yourself and take responsibility, I suppose, for your own part in the journey to recovery.
Exactly. I think it's about being proactive, and no one can save you. Well, as a Christian, I believe in Jesus, but in terms of being proactive, no individual on the planet can save you, but yourself. People can do you favors, and that's exactly what was happening over that decade period. Everyone trying to reach out and help family members, friends, but until I looked at myself and said I wanted different for myself, things didn't change.
And although you say you've got a strong faith, which is wonderful, you've also had a faith in yourself, I think. That's what's there. And so, you are now back on a stable footing, which is, where you started your journey. But I wonder, what the future looks like for you. There's bound to be challenges along the way, aren't there? How are you going to deal with challenges that come up now?
Yes, and I think, like I said, it's just about knowing your early signs. For everyone suffering with a mental health condition, it's a bit different depending on your diagnosis. For me, I just have to watch my the things that do change when I relapse, which are like my sleeping patterns, my energy levels, and so it's monitoring those things, and being able to take action before things escalate further.
I was just checking my notes, George, because we came up with 3 C's yesterday. Do you remember what they were?
Yes. Being capable.
Yes.
Being careful.
Yes.
And do you want to help me with the last
Being
one?
conscious.
Thank you. I tried. I got 2 out of 3. Thank you.
So capable, careful, and conscious, and I really like that as a sort of reminder, and a reminder from you of the 3 things that you've done.
Yes.
So just a couple of questions to you, and then we'll take some questions from the audience.
Right.
If you were to look back now at yourself, at 15, coming to the UK, what one piece of advice would you give yourself?
Buckle up.
Buckle up for the ride.
Buckle up for the ride. I would say to him that it's okay. It's okay to go through hardship. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, and there's a lot of character to be built when you go through long suffering and hardship. And even though I've been through such a rough ride, it's really made me a better person today, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And it's so fascinating that you say that, because I know many of the people I help with conflict will say, I wouldn't have chosen to go through this, but it's one of the best things that ever happened to me because of the transformation that they've achieved at the end of the day. And it's interesting that you have that message too.
Absolutely, it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it's definitely worthwhile.
So let's take some questions, if there's any questions from the audience now.
I've got a question, please, George, which you might be able to answer, but there's a lot of conversation nowadays too, generally about children's mental health. When you came to the UK from Cameroon, I know you said you had, I know you have close family who gave you love and support that way, but did you have any, did the education system or any kind of childcare system have any knowledge of what you'd been through in Cameroon, of the incident that shaped everything? And did you manage to, were you able to talk to anybody about that?
While I was going to school, I was actually trying to hide my identity. Never really opening up about my true story to anyone, just being vague, even with my closest friends. Now I have a better understanding of the behavior as an adult who has been diagnosed with a mental health condition. But whilst I was at school, I didn't really understand that behavior.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Can I ask, it seems to me that one of the most important things is to be able to identify those early warning signs.
Yes.
How did you first decide that these are the warning signs? And did you have any help in identifying what they are?
I had help in identifying the early signs after I'd relapsed quite a number of times. It did take a lot of relapses to learn, and which is why it's almost 10 years on, even over, and I'm only just finding my sort of, stable space. And so, yes, it's tricky and it's different for depending on your mental health diagnosis, it's different for everyone. But yes, I've learned that through going through the mental health system. I know my early signs now.
And I suppose one of the best things to do is what this is all about.
Exactly.
To communicate.
Absolutely.
To those people who are around you, your friends,
yes.
family,
yes.
And the mental health team.
Yes, and you can get the support and understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George, for what you've shared so far. So thinking about the people who were around you and thinking about who I'm around, what is your advice to people in terms of being an ally to someone who's going through such difficulty? Because there is a way in which we can enable somebody to stay in the place they are, or we can enable them to move out of the place where they are. And it's often really tricky to know, this tough love. And what could have helped you move on faster, or what advice would you give?
That's a very good question. Thank you, Fiona, for your question. It's interesting because I was talking with my partner, Kitty, last night, and we were, touching around that subject about how it didn't really benefit me, all the love and support I was getting. I actually, in hindsight, I would have preferred if, people were a bit more, just hard, just like you said, the tough love. And that's what I've been applying to myself to be able to achieve the stability that I've got today. So, absolutely. Thank you.
George, I have a question.
Sure.
When you were going through all of the time and all the support from your family, did you find that you found that even harder to open up to family members because you were afraid to actually let go of your true feelings? Because I have daughters who suffer from mental health, and they hide so much from me.
Yes.
And I can see the pain and the heartache and the stress and the fear in them on a daily basis, but they just will not open up to me.
Yeah.
And I can feel that from you when you say about family love, and it doesn't matter how much you're loved by your loved ones.
Yes, yes.
All that pain and all that, anxiousness, and you just want to scream out and say, just please help me, but you just can't find that.
Yes, yes.
In your family.
Absolutely, and that goes hand in hand with the whole stigma thing, because when I first had my first episode, I just remember feeling isolated, ashamed, just defeated and alienated, and so it just feels like something so ugly that you don't want to, share with anyone else. You want to try and get through that yourself, but there's a beauty in, the opening up, the healing process that comes with opening up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your story. I feel so proud to be here. My name's Beth Brown-Reed. I work for Oxford Tonight.
Thank you, Beth.
And one of the things that this brings to me is that people from our culture, there is never any support for our culture, and there isn't a reflection of ourselves in the support group that will help anyone. So for me, this is like opening the door to Pandora's box for me to hear that. Because I've worked at Oxford Tonight for 22 years, and it's very difficult coming from the culture that me and you come from,
yes,
to actually say that we've got a mental health problem.
So true.
I'm not saying it's easier for anybody else, but it's twice as difficult. Remember, we have black, so that's something we have to overcome that hurdle, then having a mental health problem. On top of that, that makes it difficult.
It does.
Yeah?
It does.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Yes, David.
To ask, on the lines of tough love, what worked for me, and I don't know if it will work for you, but when you're studying your history, you're getting in touch with your history, you're learning about how things happened in the past. I don't know if you've ever thought, how do I connect that? How you bring that culture. You said you felt lost a little bit, and I felt like that. But when I got in time with my culture, and was understanding our history, is that any time that come to mind, I'm doing so.
Sorry, I didn't quite get your question. Do you mean in terms of connecting with my background and that helping me with my healing process?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I was born in Cameroon, so obviously that disconnect coming all the way over here to the UK for several years, you sort of just flow. You just you get a bit lost, especially if you're going through trauma and have a mental health condition. Yes, definitely. And I think nowadays I'm so much more in touch with my family back home and my culture. Yes.
I was also going to ask about, I don't know if you've ever come across like stoicism, when you talked about tough love. There are lots of things that I learned from Socrates on tough love, and the man has to go through certain things in life for them to understand, for them to build. Certain things make hardens the egg, and certain things softens the potato, as they say.
Yeah.
So, you come across stoicism, do you look at that?
Thank you.
I'm struggling to hear you, David. Sorry.
He's talking about stoicism, the philosophy of stoicism, being stoic.
Okay. Yes. I think the whole tough love thing, I'm applying it to myself currently. Things were so easy earlier on in terms of family support and friends, and that didn't enable me in my healing process. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, George.
Hey, Simon.
Can I ask you a bit about how your creative side's helped you? I know you mentioned you've got an interest in music, and I'd be interested to sort of know how that's helped in your recovery. And I know for many of us, particularly men, getting work sometimes is a real help to find some structure in our lives. And I wondered how your current experience of the films or experience of trying to get, meaningful activity, or has helped you move forward.
Yes, absolutely. I think my music is huge in my recovery, especially over the last couple of years after my last relapse, and implementing all the changes that I have now in my life. There's several songs that I recorded throughout that period, some of which featured on the BBC radio station, BBC Radio Oxford. One which featured my partner who's here today, Kitty. So that whole creative process is such a liberating element that is giving me a healing progress in my healing that I couldn't have had otherwise. It's definitely worth investing in something creative if you're going through. That's what I would definitely give that advice to someone suffering from a mental health condition. Thank you.
We have time for one more, Jane.
One more,
George?
if there is one, but otherwise we'll carry on.
Hello. Thank you ever so much for sharing so much. My father was diagnosed with bipolar when I was very young. I was a young parent for a long time.
Wow.
And I myself recently got an adult diagnosis of ADHD, which isn't necessarily seen as a mental health issue or concern, but it is something we see as like non-typically neurodiverse.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say I really resonated with some of the stuff you were saying around it's when we can accept ourselves and love ourselves a little bit, that we can actually use some of these things in a really positive way. Actually, who I am and the way I am, the way I process information, is a part of me. It's part of my personality.
It is.
And it can bring some more strengths as well as some more challenges, depending on how we manage that difference in us. And I think it's really important that we all recognise that actually, you were saying something earlier, you think, it felt very ugly, it's having this thing very ugly to deal with. And I absolutely recognise that, this desire to not want to be different.
Yes.
But actually, we all are anyway.
We are.
Whether you've got mental health, we're all different. And actually, that's actually our strength and something that I'm very proud of. And I think that if we can kind of hold that core to lots of our actions, it can really help with some of the things that feel ugly, but actually, that's just who I am. I can actually maximise that well. There are plenty of hugely successful people who have sort of non-neurotypical processing.
That's very true.
Because they've got non-neurotypical. Therefore, they are more creative or they are more proactive when they're in this space. Do you see what I mean?
I get you.
So I think that we need to recognise that there's some real good, once we can accept it and manage things, and I hear you saying needs to be managed with diet, sleep, lifestyle, whatever it may be, that works for us. And it is different for everyone. But just wanted to share with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So George, just to wrap up, I'd just like to ask you if you've got one final message for the audience. Those have been fantastic questions, thank you, which have really, enhanced what you've said. What would your final message be?
Just to thank each and every one. I got a few people to thank today, so I just have to go through that here. First of all, Jane, thank you. Thank you for all the support since we met. All the understanding and even being here present today, this event that we discussed almost a couple of years ago now, and it's coming to fruition. Thank you. I also like to thank Tom, Vincent's Club, for everyone that made this possible. Kitty, my girlfriend. I want to thank my family, each and every one of you who turned up here today, everyone who viewed online. Thank you, Leonard Saki. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Ebony, Charlie. And last but not least, I just want to thank God for bringing us all together and permitting our endeavor to impact the lives of others positively. Thank you all so much. I just wanted to, so basically I created a short film in 2020, and this is when I opened up about my story. It's titled The Journey of a Lifetime, also the title of this event. And, past that point, I just felt like not everyone with a mental health condition is going to be able to make a short film. But we have this platform where people who suffer can come and tell their stories and get the support that they need, and be understood. Also, as well as creating the awareness while some fundraising, and we make it a bit fun as well because we have the live entertainment with the music. So, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Fantastic. So I just want to thank George for his honesty, vulnerability, encouraging people to tell their truth. I think that, what you're describing and what life is, it's a lifelong journey, and connecting with yourself, as one of the questions showed, connecting with your true self is a lifelong journey. And we've set up this event now to be an ongoing journey in itself, encouraging people to be able to tell their story and share their journey. So we invite all of you to continue that journey with them. And I'm going to recount those 3 C's: to be capable, caring, and conscious. I think that's wonderful. So thank you all very much. We've got a poem, I think, to lead out with, haven't we?
If I had it all to do again, and we never have it all to do again, but if I did have it all to do again, I'd take much more time to dance. Dance, you say? Who needs ballet? Who needs to move and sway that way? But that's not dancing, just moving that way. When you celebrate each day, that's dancing, I say. When you dare to be you, that's when you dance. When you fall and get up, that's when you dance. When you can laugh at yourself, that's when you dance. When you enrich someone's life, then you have danced. For dancing is feeling that whatever place you're in can be made into a place where hope can begin. Dancing is reaching again and again for the best that's in you. That's dancing, my friend.